Welcome to Legends in Leadership, brought to you by ISF and the Carrington Group. Legends in Leadership is an inspirational podcast featuring the stories of leaders who are making a difference. Our goal is to inspire you with the stories of leaders who come from humble beginnings, overcome challenges, and ultimately rise up to make a difference in people's lives.
Hello, welcome to Legends in Leadership. This is Jason Smith, your host today, family officer with the Carrington Group. My co-host on today's podcast is Dr. Blair Ritchie, Executive Director of the International Student Foundation. Good morning, Blair.
Good morning, Jason. Good to be together.
Yes. As we do every week, we're going to kick off our show with our leadership trivia questions. Dr. Blair, what do you have for us today?
I got a fun one today, and it's kind of near to our heart. You know, at ISF, we have this huge heart for orphan kids and foster care kids, and we work with them as they age out of foster care and help them with their dream of college education. And so today's leader actually grew up in an orphanage, an orphanage in Italy. Father passed away, and a widowed mother just simply could not afford to bring up her 5 children. So they ended up in an orphanage. So as he aged out of orphan care, he had to figure out, how do I support myself? And so he actually went to work in an eyeglass factory, but along the way suffered an accident and lost part of his finger in the process. But at that factory, he learned enough skill to actually open up his own molding factory in Agordo, which is at the center of the Italian eyeglass industry. And that little shop that he started became the launch of what today is known as the Luxottica Group, one of the most powerful companies in the eyeglass industry, actually swallowing up such iconic brands as Ray-Ban and Oakley. So today's trivia question is, who is this leader who rose from an orphanage to become one of Italy's most successful billionaires?
Wow, that's quite a journey.
Be back at the end of the show with the answer on that one.
Great. Well, I am very excited to welcome Dr. Carla Russo to the show today. She is a professor of integrative and functional wellness with an emphasis on holistic nutrition and health sciences, a Board Certified Naturopath doctor, holds a Master of Science in Clinical Nutrition, holds a subspecialty certification in human behavior, is a certified addiction and recovery life coach, and is a registered yoga instructor specializing in therapeutic and rehabilitative technique. For over 25 years, Dr. Carla's work as a wellness coach has focused on sharing both her personal and professional experience, addressing the whole being, mind, body, and spirit. Very excited to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted and truly honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, tremendous amount of experience and education, and what we'd really like to do, though, is rewind the tape a little bit and start earlier in your life and ask about what was an early influence for you that guided you in this path?
Positive influence, or just an influence of life dishing out what life can dish out to us sometimes?
They come in both ways.
You know, my story is one of tragedy to triumph, and it started at a very early age. I was 8 years old when I was molested, and as most children, and really any person of any age, adolescent age, is not equipped to handle that type of a trauma. And so also, as classic for the victim, the aggressor or the offender threatens that if you say anything, they're going to hurt someone that you care about. And in this case, this was a friend of my sister's who's 11 years older than myself. So I said nothing because I didn't want to put her in harm's way. But internalizing and not knowing how to channel those feelings and what to do with this, I medicated with food and very rapidly went from being a tall, lean, healthy child to a morbidly obese little girl. And now set in the bullying. And today there's a huge campaign, as there should be, for anti-bullying. But that existed when I was a little girl too, and it was horrific.
Sure.
And so I had to endure all of that, which compounded the problem. And the obesity just continued to just blow up, literally, to a crazy degree. And by the time I got to high school, in my first 10 weeks of high school, I was brutally beaten and raped. And very damaged at this point. When I got past all of that, I said to my mother, I'm done. I'm not going back to high school. I quit. And I was an A student because I had become so introverted from the molestation that all I did was read. Books were my friend, and it was safe. And so I was a smart little girl. But here I was saying, I quit. I'm out. I'm a high school dropout, effective immediately. And my mother never knew about the rape. She knew about the beating because I was in the hospital. Because in my culture, being Cuban-Italian, virginity back then, as it should always be, but back then especially, was a very big deal. And so I just kept that quiet. But my mom fought and challenged the Board of Education. I was able to test out, even though I'd only just turned 15, and I went straight to college.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And now I'm in college doing what college kids do, but I'm not equipped to do it. I'm 15 years old and I'm damaged, and it was sort of a bad country love song, looking for love in all the wrong places. And I masterfully learned how to take just enough sleeping pills at night and drink just enough alcohol to escape the pain, but still be highly productive and highly achieving quite a bit in my classes throughout the day. Made it through college, undergrad, and my mom dies in front of me from congestive heart failure. And at this point, I'm tipping the scales at 330 pounds. And so her physician, who was my doctor as well, I think, though what he did was completely illegal and unethical, he did it to save my life, and he did. In that moment, as my mother was literally choking on her own blood, and he knew there was nothing he could do for her, he looked at me and said, "This is you in 5 years," and he walked out.
Wow.
And in that moment, I can't even begin to tell you what was going through my mind, and this is transpiring in front of me with my mother, and he said this to me. And so I went numb and got through that period of interning my mother and dealing with my father and my sister, and everybody's a histrionic mess, and I was just catatonic almost, and decided that once that was behind me, I didn't want to live anymore. And so I literally checked into a hotel to plan my own demise. And so, I'm sorry, because I've told this story thousands of times at this point throughout my career, but it's still always hard, especially because of what I'm focusing on today. Charity-wise, it just really resonates firmly. But when I went into it, literally to figure out the perfect way, I was, and I don't say this with any humor at all, but I say it to really paint a picture of understanding. I was a very considerate suicidal person, meaning shooting myself, was not an option because I didn't want someone to have to come in and scrape my brains off the wall. And I knew too much, having at that point being a nurse, I knew that they make it look glamorous on TV that you just take a bottle of pills and fall asleep and that they just find you there. That's not what really happens. It's a wretched, painful, cramping, throwing up, bloating, horrific death, and then you're found in a horrible state. So I didn't want to be found that way either. So I prayed about using all this textbook knowledge to figure out the perfect way that I could be found looking like Sleeping Beauty. Yeah. And when I figured it out, that was the day. And here comes the influence. That was the day that it was as though lightning struck through my body, because as I stood at the bathroom counter, really taking myself in the mirror, thinking, okay, I figured it out, today's the day, it was as though lightning struck through my body. And I literally fell to my knees, and I literally heard, "Get up. You were not built to break, and I will use all this for the greater good." And in that moment, I thought, great. So now on top of everything else, I'm hearing voices. I'm losing my mind. Perfect. I'm going to check out, and now I'm crazy too. And I'm sobbing on my knees on this marble bathroom floor, and I shattered my knee as I dropped on top of it all. So I'm in horrific pain in the process. 330 pounds, crashing on marble, you can imagine. Wow. And I hear it again. "Get up. You were not built to break. I will use this all for the greater good." And in my hysteria, I cry out in my arrogance to God, and I say, okay, you know what? I'm going to give you one chance. You show me how you're going to use me, having been molested, having been raped, the bullying, the brutalities, my mother dying in front of me, all the crap I've had to endure. Yeah. How are you going to use, first of all, why? And B, what did I ever do? And B, how are you going to use this for the greater good? I'm going to give you one shot. And now that I've figured out how to do this, you don't deliver, I'm out. Literally. And I crawled to the bed in pain and just passed out from exhaustion. And when I came to, I proceeded to pen a program for weight loss. And I say pen because when I was done and I read it, I thought, this is really good, but it wasn't me. It was divine. I literally wrote this program. It was just being downloaded to me. And I did the program myself, transformed myself in under 9 months, lost all of the weight, what the media later pegged from supersize to supermodel in less time than it takes to have a baby. And I've kept it off now for 28 years. Well, that changed my life. I went back, got the degree in clinical nutrition, became a weight loss expert and coach, and targeted the morbid obesity market, had great success. Fast forward, lived out every dream with that, got bought out, retired, and then ultimately went back to school to become who I am today. And now I use all of what I am today to advocate on behalf of the causes near and dear to me, which are health and wellness and suicide prevention.
So I'm curious how you make the transition from helping yourself to then helping others, in that process of creating and following your own program. It seems like an effort then to go out and help others. Tell us a little bit about what it is that fueled you to help other people overcome what you did.
It wasn't an effort at all. It became my passion, because what I discovered through my own program was the truth that the diet industry didn't want people to know, and they still don't. And that is that by that time in my life, I had done every magic pill, magic cookie, magic potion, every freeze-dried program. That's not even enough food for my chihuahua, right? And so I had done all those programs, and you lose some weight and you regain it and then some. And I had done all of the marketing. It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. And what I figured out is that I could, and I'm walking, talking, living proof, lose all of the weight naturally, eating real food, not living at the gym, not having to give up alcohol, not having to in any way be deprived. And I understood what it was to get the proper nutrition in the right amounts, and muscle confusion and all these things that goes into it, that you can do this. You absolutely can. But what was most important, and what I realized, that it wasn't about the food at the end of the day, because weight loss starts in your mind, not on your plate. This isn't about the pizza. It's what's driving you to eat more than one slice. Okay? Because the human body's only equipped to handle so much. Our bladders are designed to hold a pint, but yet we'll drink a big gulp, which is 3 times the amount what the body can hold. And so, what pushes us to that excessive consumerism? And so it was my passion I had a message, and I wanted to be heard. And I was blessed, because door after door after door opened, and it was very well received. And by the time I was done, I had over 100,000 followers and clients, and it was just nationally and internationally, and it was just a real blessing. And it was a short run that was 20 years in the making.
Right.
And from there, finding myself with, okay, well, now that I'm done with that, what's next for me? And it was, okay, now my next passion that came about was the opioid crisis that we have in America, what I believe is many times prescriptions that are being written unnecessarily or excessively. And so I really wanted to bring awareness and attention and do something about it. And so I thought, well, let me get trained that I can work with doctors and chiropractors and more naturopathically and homeopathically treating their patients. Not that there's not a time and place for medication or surgery, there certainly is. I just don't feel it should be your first recourse.
Right.
And so that was the passion and the fuel that drove me to want to go into that coaching practice, because I knew that I could reach people not by diet and exercise. Anybody can help you lose weight. My mastery came about teaching you how to keep it off once and for all, and that starts in your head, not in the gym.
So it's delivering it on an amazing program, but also building that following that's stayed with you beyond that program, as you've said.
Yeah.
What qualities do you think you as a leader have embodied that have helped you attract people and have them stick with you, and even cross from individuals into professionals and other industries with doctors and chiropractors and things like that?
I don't hold myself separate, because here's what I can tell you with 100% certainty. Regardless of your socioeconomics, regardless of your race, regardless of your sexual orientation, regardless, if I took a scalpel out right now and sliced each and every one of those categories, we all bleed the same. So just because you have achieved certain things, don't forget who and why you're there. You were blessed, you were chosen, you were given opportunities that a lot of people don't get. So don't misuse that power, and don't think you're so great because it wasn't you, because in a nanosecond, it can be taken away.
Sure. And
so I think that approaching people and life in general, treating them with the same kindness and openness that you would want to be treated is the thing to do. And so I can sum it up by saying love is the answer. Stop with the judgment, stop with being the separations and the divides and the rhetoric. Love is the answer. Get over yourself and just be grateful and be glad and live well if you've been blessed to do that. But you have a moral responsibility to pay it forward, and you should.
That voice of the greater good.
Yeah.
Do you go back to that a lot?
24/7. I drive in my car. I was just speaking last night at this program that I've launched here in Dallas for this 13-week curriculum I was telling you about. I honestly, and to some people it may seem crazy, but I don't impose my spiritual beliefs on anyone, and everyone knows me to be very Christian heart, Buddhist Zen mindset. It's the joke. I'm just very chill. But I live in a state of presence. I'm very present to God. I seek him out. I don't make decisions without consulting him. If I'm in my car by myself, it's as though Jesus is riding in the passenger seat with me and I've just buckled him in. Like I keep it that real for me. And oftentimes when I'm even talking in Christian arenas, they're Christians and they profess and they go to church and they think they're doing everything right, but they're still stuck and they still have all these strongholds or these behaviors that are far, far from what the message and the freedom found in him is. And so I'm really big on love is the answer. Stop with the judgments, stop with all of that, because if you can do that, it will be amazing. Understand what I said. Doors started flying open, and it wasn't because I was special, because what I teach, most people know. Now, whether they practice it or not is another story.
Right.
Having knowledge and application are two different things, but there was nothing special. I'm just a girl. I'm first generation immigrant. I'm not some tiny, cute little bebopping blonde, and none of that. I've been from tragedy to triumph and everything in between. I think what set it apart was I just genuinely am fascinated by people. I love people. And I don't judge, because it's not for me to judge. And I know what it is to be judged. And so that is the last thing I would ever do to someone.
Sure.
Your response, the people who respond to you, just seems like the response has to overwhelm you at times. That how you've been able to tap in and help other people. Have you thought through that of why there's this response? Why you get that kind of responsiveness from people to your story or to what your outreach is doing?
Yes, I have. And as I've gotten older, and there's a lot to be said for maturity, it's not me. And when I take the stage or the front of the room or a classroom or I'm speaking at a conference, it's not me. Sometimes I have to go back and rewatch the video, because I pray before I sit down and never open my mouth, including talking to you guys today. And then I just go and I just speak from my heart, and it really isn't. I feel like I'm called to just convey a message that's been downloaded to me, if that kind of makes sense. And so I just tell it like I really feel it. I'm very direct. I'm very gestalt. So sometimes I say things that people are like, wow, because I don't velvet glove anything for anybody. I'm going to tell you like it is.
Yeah.
And it's not me telling you, it's just what I'm feeling.
Was the journey out of tragedy to triumph, talk about how hard that is for some people because of forgiving and other kinds of things you've had to go through to process that? It's one thing to say, that's my journey, but there had to be some real hard places along the way to process.
It doesn't get much harder than planning your own demise.
Yeah.
How bad does it have to be that you get to that point where you're planning your own demise? It's based on understanding the difference between feeling guilty over something and feeling shame.
Okay.
And people don't know the difference often enough, or they get stuck in it in such a way. But here's the reality is if you're feeling guilty about something, it's something that you can correct, and it's something that you can move on from, and you can redesign, reinvent, and let it go. When you are feeling shame, that's part of who you are now. It's not something you did. You're feeling shame either because of your upbringing or because of some trauma that's happened to you, or because society has, beaten you down, and so you don't feel that you fit in, and so you have all this consumerism because people keep thinking the next thing's going to make me feel better, and you have the debt and all of that. So understanding that I was so riddled with shame over what had happened, and then I took action and became morbidly obese and did all these other things myself. So now I was dealing with shame and guilt, and I was so stuck, and I had to peel away like an onion. That when you start to first peel an onion, it stings and you're crying, but if you keep going, you get to the sweet center. And so I had to understand learning, and I went on a quest and sought out mentors, and didn't always agree with all of them, didn't even like some of them. But I was smart enough to know they knew more than me because they were at the front of the room talking, or they had already achieved the success and were living the life I wanted to. And so I knew enough to know, just listen, just shut up and listen, and then let it sit in your spirit, pray about it, think about it, and then do what feels right to you. And it was learning the difference. I had to take responsibility for the things I was guilty, because those were my actions. I brought it on. I did it. I had to remove the victim role, the victimization, the validation, the excuses of why, well, this is just, woe is me. I had to cut through all that minutia. And I had to come to terms and reconcile and take responsibility for the things I felt guilt over. And then the shame that I felt over what had happened, in both instances, the molestation and then later the rape, I had to understand that that had nothing to do with me. And it wasn't that I asked for it or that I deserved it. It's just what happened. And how can I use what happened to help other people? And how can I use what happened to make me stronger and to make me better? That was a choice. And oftentimes people don't make that choice, and instead they get stuck in the shame. And so then they just love and master the role of victim. And that just creates a life that's very hard and very bitter. And no matter what you acquire and what you achieve, you're never going to be happy. Hence why lots of Wall Street people jump out of buildings with millions of dollars in their bank account.
Yeah. And you shared a little bit earlier your work with the crisis in prescription drugs and also in the suicide prevention efforts, and how you're turning what's happened to you, as you said, use it for good, use it to help others. So share with me a little bit about your role in helping to bring visibility and help to these people in the very tough places they're in.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for asking this question of me right now, because it is a real hot button for me, and anyone following me on social media knows. And so I was bestowed the honor by the woman who chairs, it's known as Fashion Stars. It's an organization in support of the Suicide Crisis Center of North Texas. And Miss Yvonne Crum handpicks the Fashion Stars each year. This is now year 5 of this organization. And she chooses people that she feels have a powerful story, have influence, and can really help take the message to the world, and can do some fundraising along the way, and can really take it to the next level. And so I am one of the Fashion Stars for 2019. And so I've been very busy advocating and hosting events across Dallas. Myself and the other 10 people on the committee with me this year, we're supporting one another. We're each in our own way tapping into our networks and our resources. And it's all to support this incredible organization that has a 24/7 hotline, which is very important to understand. But there's more. There's actual resources and programs for the person in crisis, for the family dealing with the person in crisis, or if the person has already committed suicide and the survivor with a big S behind is left behind.
Right.
And, you know, one suicide affects hundreds of people from that originating person. And so I just so love the work that she has done these past few years in doing Fashion Stars, that when she asked me, it was a no-brainer. And it's at this point, I've met such remarkable women, that one woman in particular, Andrea Maldovan, she's actually the owner of the Chimes Hotel here in Dallas, who has opened the hotel up for us to be able to do events and do photo shoots and all of this. And her son committed suicide just a year ago.
Oh, gosh.
And when I met her at the time, it was only like 6 months into it. And I felt her pain from a different side. I had been on the plan my demise side. Never thought through what would have happened had I carried it out. And through Andrea's eyes and her story, she cut me to the core. And because of what Yvonne started by my being chosen for this, and then later meeting Andrea and all these other people, it changed my life forever, because now I'm not only doing this right now leading up to our gala at the Country Club, at the Dallas Country Club next month, and doing these fundraisers, but for me personally, much after next month, this is going to continue, because I've become very well read at this point, statistics of the various age groups and demographics and things leading to it, and it's an epidemic at this point. And so I want to use in whatever small way I can bring about awareness, or use my circle to bring greater people, that even greater influence that I could ever hope to have, to really bring awareness and funding to this most noteworthy cause. That's where it's at for me right now.
Yeah, I read a statistic that the life expectancy had decreased for the first time in decades, and they're pointing to suicide as a major contributing factor to that.
Yeah, and like I say, so many people are left behind, absolutely devastated and crushed, with nowhere to go. You know, even if it's a child that you've lost, if the child was sick, you kind of mentally are preparing, and you can reconcile, and you can somehow understand that. But when you leave your child and everything was great at dinner, and the next phone call you get is that they've taken their own life, you were forever changed in a way that I can't even begin to describe. And there is no healing or program that can ever make that okay, but can make it so that you can channel that pain and that grief, which is what Andrea in this case is doing so magnificently, is that she's keeping Keaton's life, she's turning it into a legacy by helping us really take the message out there and helping us and getting behind us and helping us do the things that we're doing. And it's much more than just the fundraising. It's the awareness is the first thing, because, you know, I just posted on my Facebook earlier this week the TSA agent that jumped at the airport, and he was on the railing about to jump, and someone saw him and walked past him and got on the elevator anyway, and then the man jumped. And my whole thing is stop and ask, are you okay? Stop minding your own business. If it doesn't look right, and someone on a railing of a high rise probably doesn't look right,
right?
You know, or the gentleman, one of the 19 only survivors that ever jumped the Golden Gate Bridge. He said, you know, he stood there, and when he finally decided, he said, with the thousands of people that had walked past him, no one stopped and ever asked, are you okay? And finally he said, okay, God, if just one person at the end of the day, sundown was coming or what have you, and if one person will just ask if I'm okay. And there came a woman, and as she was walking up to him, he thought, oh, okay. And she says, will you take my picture?
Okay. Wow.
And he took her photo, and then he jumped. And then he states in his book, and he tours the country now, that the second he let go of the railing, he regretted it. And that impacted me so profoundly, listening to another wonderful woman, a fabulous attorney here in town, Terry Bentley Hill, who lost her child and her husband both to suicides. Right? And so she's a huge advocate for this cause as well. But listening to her share this story, these things have impacted me so greatly that I came in this to serve, but really I'm being served, because I think it's going to make me take my game, whatever that is, to the next level with some real drive and purpose, because now it's very real.
Sure.
These are stories that have impacted me that I cannot ever let go of.
Is there a particular website or place that you can point people, the audience listening, if they want to learn more about the efforts that are going on with this organization?
Absolutely. So it is the Suicide Crisis Center of North Texas. And so it's sccnt.org.
Okay.
But they can look it up. Certainly they can follow me on social media or reach out to me, and I will connect and point. And if they want any part, if they want to attend my upcoming event on Tuesday here in Dallas, they are invited. Come by for a cocktail. Come by just to meet us all. And plug them in. And we've got raffle tickets that we're selling for a wonderful first-class trip in Cabo. And we've got the gala coming up next month at the Country Club. So if you want to plug into any of that, just reach out to me and we'll connect you.
Great. I'm sure we could have so much more to talk about. But we are running out of time, and just want to thank you very much for making the time to be with us on the episode today.
Bless you both. Thank you all so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Well, Dr. Blair, we'll turn it back over to you to find out the answer to our trivia question.
You know, today's podcast is just all about a reminder that even the hard places of our life are never wasted, and that the way we find comfort, or the way we find strength, the way we get help and experience grace in that, then becomes the way we are able to help others and to reach out. And what a great illustration you are, Carla, of that. And it inspires me to know that nothing's wasted in life. Even the hard places can be used to help others. So way to go.
Thank you.
And here's another, you know, you start out in an orphanage and you don't want to be a victim, right? So you overcome some things. And if you're into eyeglasses, the name Leonardo Del Vecchio might mean something to you. I don't know, but
I have some of their optics.
Yeah, there you go. You're probably paying a lot for his glasses. I'm telling you that.
They're fabulous.
Well, that's a great one. Yeah, very influential from humble beginnings. Well, folks, that's the end of our podcast for today. On behalf of Blair Ritchie, Executive Director of the International Student Foundation, and our guest, Dr. Carla Russo, wishing you a good day. And remember that if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are a leader.
Legends in Leadership is brought to you by the Carrington Group. Carrington Group is a family office with a passion for helping business leaders and their families make smart choices and fulfill their highest aspirations. To learn more about the Carrington Group, visit their website at www.carringtonfo.com or Google Carrington Group Dallas, Texas. ISF is committed to leadership development for aged-out foster care and orphaned youth. ISF's mission is to transform these youth into tomorrow's leaders with scholarships, mentoring, and leadership training. To learn more about ISF, visit their website at isfsite.org or Google International Student Foundation to learn more.
Securities offered through Regulus Advisors, LLC, member FINRA/SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Regal Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Regulus Advisors and Regal Investment Advisors are affiliated entities. Carrington Group and this broadcast are independent of Regulus Advisors and Regal Investment Advisors.